Hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg. We are at the end of January, which means it's time for a book haul. My goal for book hauls this year is to be much more intentional. I've talked a little bit about that in previous videos. So I'm hoping that I will have smaller book hauls this year, but books that I am really likely to get to, really quality books and authors and books that I would like to support, things like that. And I think January is kicking that off to a really good start. There are only, I think, 5 books that I'm going to talk about today. Yes, 5 books, but I'm really excited about each of them for various reasons and really looking forward to talking about them. This is something that has come from my book haul revisits a little bit. I'll link my most recent book haul revisit in the description box down below if you'd like to check that out. But I just really want to think about how I spend my money on books, how much space I have in my library, and also about my TBR and whether or not I am really likely to end up reading the books that I bring into my library, because I've been thinking about these book haul revisits and the ways in which some items end up just sitting on my shelf and things like that. So I'm trying to be much more intentional. And I'm really excited to talk about all of these books, especially since 2 of them are for the LGBTQ in translation read along that is going to be hosted by Jen the Librarian. I'll put a link to her channel in the description box down below, as well as a link to the Discord where there will be a chat about the 2 books, because one of them is the official selection, but if you want to read the other book, you can. My goal is to read both of them for February and March, and what I really like is that because you have 2 months, it seems pretty doable to do both. So that's my goal. I really want to do both, but the winner of the vote, the official selection of the LGBTQ in translation read along for February and March, is The Membranes, a novel by Ta-Wei, translated by Larissa, Heinrich. I ordered copies of both of these books from Blackwell's because they are published in the UK. I was having trouble finding copies in the US, and I really wanted to support either Gaze the Word or Queer Lit UK, which are 2 independent bookstores based in the UK, but I just ordered 2 different books from Gaze the Word, and the shipping is a little expensive. So I decided to cut a corner since I had just supported one of those stores and use Blackwell's instead. So that's what I did. There's probably still time if you order quickly, if you want to participate in the read along and live in the United States. I've heard people managing to track down copies in the US. I was not having much luck, so that's why I went through ordering directly from the UK. Anyway, I'm really excited to read this book. It's also short. Both books are relatively short, which is another thing that makes it seem very doable to get this in. This is 155 pages, and the end looks like a bit of addendum. So a pretty short book. This is also going to be challenging for me because this is not the type of book I would usually read, and that makes it exciting for me. Maybe it won't pay off, but at least I will have challenged myself, and I definitely want to read more books in translation. And I love LGBTQ books, as you know, if you follow along, but I really want to deepen my experience of other LGBTQ experiences, like from other parts of the world. And this will hopefully do that for me. This is published by Columbia. It is originally published in 1995. It's a classic piece of queer speculative fiction, originally in Chinese, and it's set in a world in which humanity has moved to domes at the bottom of the sea in order to escape climate change. It follows a dermal care technician who begins to explore her true identity, a journey that finds her questioning her gender, self, memory, and identity. The blurb credits it with predicting fitness trackers and social media saturation, which makes it really interesting. And again, this was published in 1995 when the World Wide Web was pretty new as a concept at the time. So the idea that it would have predicted both of those things is pretty good. So it's a little out there because it's speculative fiction. It's a little bit sci-fi. Those are not things I tend to engage with very much, but I'm excited to give it a try and see if I like it. Again, it's really short, so I'm excited to give it a shot. The one thing that bothers me, it's a very gorgeous book. The way it's printed, you can see it's very shiny. It's easy to leave fingerprints. on this, but that's going to be fine. There are blurbs on the back, including Kim Stanley Robinson, who's the author of Red Mars. I have not heard of Ta-Wei. Apparently, they are a renowned writer and scholar from Taiwan, focusing on LGBT studies, disability studies, and literary history. So that will be really interesting. So it's a new author. It's a new type of genre that I don't usually read. And I'm really looking forward to this. This, again, is the official winner of the poll for the LGBTQ in translation read-along for February and March. So I am planning to start it in February. I am also starting Beloved by Toni Morrison in February, but I'm doing a buddy read of that where we read one chapter at a time. And because this is really short, I am going to break my rule about reading 2 things at a time to see if I can do both. And that should be very doable, again, because I'll be doing Beloved 1 chapter at a time, and this is very short. So that is the one that is the official selection of the read-along. The other book that was in the running, which I definitely want to read and will try to read before the end of the period, February and March, is To the Friend Who Did Not Save My Life by Hervé Guibert. This is translated by Linda Coverdale. I had to mark it down. I didn't note the publisher, so bear with me 1 second while I get that. It is published by Serpent's Tail. This, once I tell you what it's about, you will understand, is 100% something that I would be interested in. It doesn't sound like a very happy book at all, but it pretty perfectly suits my interests as a reader, and I really can't wait to explore it. I had not heard of this book before. I had not heard of Hervé Guibert before, but I'm really looking forward to reading this, which is why I definitely want to try to get to both books for the LGBTQ in translation read-along for February and March. This one was originally published in 1990, and it is a romanaclé about a man facing the ominous specter of AIDS. Guibert himself was diagnosed with AIDS in 1988, and he died a year after this book was published, roughly around his 36th birthday. This book is a look at daily life when you have been given a death sentence, and a thoughtful look at what is worth fighting for in life as well. So you can see right there why I am so interested in this book. Now, usually in my book hauls, I read the first sentence or a little bit of from the beginning of the book, and I forgot to do that for the membrane. So let's double back a little bit and do that. Chapter 1. Momo brushed her yellow bedroom wallpaper with her fingers. Then she bit gently into a hothouse peach, sweet juice oozing from pink skin so delicate it would bruise if you blew on it. Had she perceived the yellow paper through direct exposure to her subcutaneous neural network? Was it her taste buds that detected peach sweetness? She would never know. An impenetrable barrier existed between her body and the material world. That's the beginning of The Membranes by Ta-Wei, translated by Larissa, Heinrich. Let's do the beginning of To the Friend Who Did Not Save My Life by Hervé Guibert, translated by Linda Coverdale. There's a foreword, an introduction. Here we go. Chapter 1. I had AIDS for 3 months. More precisely, for 3 months, I believed I was condemned to die of that mortal illness called AIDS. Mind you, I was not imagining things. I really did have the disease, and the positive test results to prove it, as well as lab workups showing that my blood was beginning to deteriorate. But after 3 months, something completely unexpected happens that convinced me I could and almost certainly would escape this disease, which everyone still claimed was always fatal. Just as I had told no one save a few of my close friends that I was doomed, I told no one save these same friends that I was going to make it, that I would become, by an extraordinary stroke of luck, one of the first people on Earth to survive this deadly malady. The next book I brought into my library in the month of January goes back to my obsession with the Franklin Library collection of Pulitzer Prize winners. They did a series where they had all of the Pulitzer Prize winners for fiction, I believe through 1977 or 1978, in these gorgeous leather-bound, gilt-edged editions. I've been collecting a bunch of them since I first learned about them, as I find them available online. There were a bunch in my December book haul, which I will link in the description box down below if you'd like to check out others. This one is In This Our Life by Ellen Glasgow. And as usual, all of these open with really beautiful 2-page spread illustrations. There is the one for In This Our Life. Let me quickly find another example of an illustration in here. This is a beautiful edition of this book. There is an illustration from the inside. Now, what's really interesting about this book, it seems to be one of the lesser known winners of the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and its reputation seems to have been eclipsed by a film version that starred Olivia de Havilland that played kind of fast and loose with the plot of the book. It appears that it changed the ending to give it a happy ending, which Hollywood is used to be very prone to do. And it also downplayed a lot of the more quote-unquote problematic aspects of the story, but it's a little bit vague on what those aspects of the story are. So it's kind of hard to even piece together what this book is about. What I can gather so far is that it follows the Timberlake family, which is described as decayed aristocrats in the South, and that it also explores racism and two marriages that fall apart over the course of the book. And that's really all I got. So let's do the opening of this book. It was originally published in 1941, which means it won the Pulitzer for 1942, because the prize is always announced the year after the book is published. Part 1, Family Feeling. Chapter 1. The street was darkened by a smoky sunset, and light had not yet come on in the lamps near the empty house. Under a troubled sky, the old house looked deserted but charged with reality. It was a place, Asa Timberlake thought, where everything had happened and nothing would ever happen again. Its life, with so many changing lives, was finished. Already, he saw, the wreckers were at work on the white columns. Nothing would remain in the end. Not a brick, not a splinter of wood, not a tree, not a leaf, scarcely a blade of grass. For a new service station, flaunting a row of red pumps in front of a stucco arch, would presently spring up between a Georgian mansion and a Victorian dwelling in Lower Washington Street. And that is In This Our Life by Ellen Glasgow. Again, one of the beautiful Franklin Library editions of Pulitzer Prize winners for fiction. This will be part of my Pulitzer Prize project. Don't know when I will get around to it. This is something of a library builder, but it will sit with the rest of my Franklin Library editions. I did find a way to display them together in my library. So that is exciting because they're all very pretty next to each other. And I have a Reader's Digest edition of The Good Earth by Pearl Buck, which is also leather bound and gilt. It's not a Franklin Library edition, but it definitely blends in. So I did pull that off my shelf and put it with these. So I can't wait to put this one with those. The next book is Still Life by Sarah Winman. What's really interesting about this one is that what actually sparked my interest in it was not necessarily Still Life. I had seen this book before and been drawn to the cover because it's very striking and attractive, but I hadn't really paid very close attention to it. Recently, I've been hearing a lot of really good things about Sarah Winman's other novel, which is called Tin Man, and Tin Man is not available on any of my subscription apps. It's not at my library, and I haven't decided if I want to order a copy of it yet. So I'm thinking about Tin Man, but while I was thinking about that, I noticed that this was available in Book of the Month Club as an add-on, so I just grabbed it because I have also heard good things about this, and as I was looking into Tin Man, I started hearing more good things about this, and it made me curious. So my interest in this actually started from a different book by Sarah Winman, and then it kind of bled over into this, and now I have this one and not the other one, which is just an interesting turn of events. This is published by Putnam, and it follows a man and a woman who meet in the wine cellar of a Tuscan villa while bombs land in the area around them during World War II, and how that night shapes the next 4 decades of the man's life. It sounds a little bit like The Tuscan Child by Rhys Bowens, which I listened to on audio last year, but very different. I've heard really good things about this, so I'm eager to try a Sarah Winman book, and I am going to think about Tin Man and whether or not I would like to get myself a copy of that. If you have feedback on Tin Man, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let's do the opening of Still Life by Sarah Winman. Man is the measure of all things, 1944. Somewhere in the Tuscan hills, 2 English spinsters, Evelyn Skinner and a Margaret Someone, were eating a late lunch on the terrace of a modest albergo. It was the 2nd of August, a beautiful summer's day, if only you could forget there was a war on. One sat in shade, the other in light, due to the angle of the sun and the vine-strewn trellis overhead. They were served a reduced menu, but celebrated the Allied advance with large glasses of Chianti. Overhead, a low-flying bomber cast them momentarily in shadow. They picked up their binoculars and studied the markings. Ours, they said, and waved. One of the things that interested me about this as well is that in the description somewhere, it mentions E.M. Forster, and E.M. Forster is my favorite writer, of course. So, of course, I love comparison to that, and it really got me interested in this as well. The last book that I am bringing into my library in January is one that maybe doesn't fit the brief of being intentional. I'm not as sure that I'm definitely going to get to it this year, but I am really interested in it. It's Fiona and Jane by Chen Ho. This is published by Viking, and I got it as part of Book of the Month. It is a collection of interconnected stories that follow the friendship of the two women from the title. They are friends from second grade on, and the stories chart how they grow apart and stay together over time, creating a portrait of a female friendship and of two Asian American women making their way in contemporary America. It also is described as having something of an LGBTQ angle. I believe one of them is a member of the LGBTQ community. I don't believe both are, but at least one of them is. So I think it's going to be an interesting book. I'm looking forward to giving it a try. Of the ones that I brought into my library, it's the one that I'm probably the least likely to read. So I'm a little hesitant about it because of that, but I'm still very interested in it. And if you have feedback about it, I would love to hear it in the comment section down below. I've heard some good advance buzz of this book. It was just released. It has a fun cover. And actually, when it arrived with still life, it kind of has fun winter moving into spring vibes in terms of aesthetics. So there's that as well, for whatever that's worth. Now, let's do the opening of the first story in Fiona and Jane. It opens with a quote from James Baldwin. Can't go wrong with James Baldwin. Chapter 1, or Story 1, The Night Market. My last evening in Taiwan, my father wanted to show me Shilin Night Market. We rode the subway, transferring at Taipei main station for the northbound Red Line. Saturday night, the market was jammed with people strolling up and down the arteries of the main thoroughfare. Baba and I dragged along with the crowd, pausing here and there to browse the wares. We'd made up from the fight in the car driving down Yangmingshan yesterday, at least for now. He'd promised to rethink the new university contract and seriously consider coming back to the States for good. I apologize if I got any of those location names incorrect in terms of pronunciation, but that is Fiona and Jane by Chen Ho. So if you have thoughts about any of these 5 books, I would love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear if you have recommendations based on any of these. If you've read In This Our Life, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are also working on the Pulitzer Prize winners for fiction, please let me know what you thought of it, because I am having a hard time finding anything really about it. So I'd be very curious to hear what you thought of it, and let me know if you know anything about any of the other books, and if you are going to participate in the LGBTQ in translation read along. Let me know in the comment section down below. I will put links to Jen, the librarian's video about the read-along and a link to the Discord channel as well. So I will leave it at that for the month of January. Look forward to another intentional book haul in the month of February. We'll see how this goes and if I can keep this up. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.